Okay, well, hello everyone. Thanks for joining us in today's session. I'm actually excited to show you some of the very powerful and flexible tools for managing your content in dotCMS from a headless perspective. Now, keep in mind that everything I'm going to be showing today can be done with out-of-the-box and no-code tools in dotCMS. The content editor does not need help from a developer or need custom development to complete the task that we're performing today. I'm using our standard demo environment and a demo SPA that is on my computer and has been built in Next.js. And I'm going to hook that up in just a second. And we will provide details so that you can actually test drive this yourself after this session. Right now, I'm going to go to our app deployer and actually deploy the Next.js app I have running locally. And this will control the pages on this .cms server in the cloud. My app will then read the page layout API and all the content APIs on the page and handle the rendering of that page in my external SPA. So the first thing I'm going to do is I've opened up using a tool called ngrok. I've opened up a way for the .cms server to actually communicate with my SPA. So I'm going to go to the EMA app, click on demo.cms.com. You can have one host. You can host as many hosts as you wish in .cms, no extra cost to you as far as we're concerned. And you can choose some hosts to connect to certain SPAs that you run and some that run .cms presentation layer pages. So this is the way that I can hit my local SPA and just /EMA for edit mode anywhere. I click save, and then the same page we were just looking at, now the presentation layer is going, now the presentation of the page is from my SPA. So everything that you're seeing now, you're going to see that the app is going to read live real time through the APIs every change that I'm making to the page, but it is my SPA providing this view. Our philosophy is that the content publisher, the marketer, should not have to lose the content editing experience in order to run headlessly, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is just show right here on this page. There's 3 different modes: edit mode, preview mode, and live mode. I'm going to hit edit mode. And I'm just going to do a little inline editing. So instead of explore the world, I'll say explore the rivers. Explore the rivers of Costa Rica. I click off. I can publish my change on my page and or inside the content. I can step inside the content and just do inline edits on the text for any of these contentlets on the page, right? So now how do you actually get a new component or a new what we call content types on the back end? What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new content type, and then we're going to add it to the bottom of this page in this final row. Then we're going to change some layouts, right? So to add a new content type or component inside of .cms, you can see here that we have no call to action, right? So we're going to add a brand new call to action just by clicking here. Don't have time to talk about all the different types of content types you can create, but we're going to create a regular content type here, and we're going to call it a call to action. So, and so then I'm going to just click create, and that's going to give me this little layout editor where I can drag and drop fields inside of the content here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a site or folder field, because typically many of our enterprise clients run multi-tenant. So they'll put a content host field so that the same content type can be used across many hosts. We want that to be searchable. We'll show you what this is whenever we contribute the content. It'll make more sense. Then I'm going to add a text field called headline and make it required and user searchable and show in the listing whenever we look at it as a piece of content. I'll click save. And then I'm going to add a WYSIWYG later on. I'm going to add the block editor so you can see both. And we will call that, you can see the notification about, hey, you could be using our block editor. So heading, and we won't make that searchable. And then I'm going to add two different rows down here for adding buttons. So this will just be text and a little subheading, and then some actionables down at the bottom, some buttons. Now, I can add two different buttons here. So I'm going to add two different rows so that it's easy for my content contributor kind of understand how things lay it out. So I'm going to add a line divider now and call this button 1. Line divider here, button 2. And then I'm going to add the button text and the button URL. So I'm going to once again text over here, button text 1. Let's copy that. So then I can also do that over here, button text 2. And then add a button URL 1 and a button URL 2. Save. And a button URL 2. So just a simple content type and save, so that then I can now go and drop this content on a page or add it over here from the content tab. So I'm just checking my variable names, make sure that I have everything set up. Yep. Okay. So I can now come over here and add, and I can add a new call to action here, right? And these are the fields we just looked at, button 1 and button 2. Or I can do it right on a page. So I'm going to go back to the site browser, go back to my index page, and add my new content right down here at the bottom in my headless edit mode anywhere experience. So the same thing we just clicked on the content tab, I can click here from the page and add content. And the type of content I'm going to add is a call to action, right? And now we're looking at that experience here to add it. And this is where you can determine if different user roles have different permissions to add content to different hosts. This is where that content host or folder field comes into play, because it will respect permissions and only allow them to save to the host that they actually have permissions to. So, oh, and you know what? I'm going to add some properties over here. I want to limit this WYSIWYG. I'm kind of glad I showed it though. So I don't want all these formatting tools. So I'm actually going to step back and make it a more minimalistic experience. So right here, I can go to the subheading WYSIWYG, and I can click field variables here. And what I'm going to do is add one. We use tinymce as a WYSIWYG editor. So I'm actually going to enter the key. And then I'm just going to give it the path to a file after setting a variable, and click save. And then I'm going to have this file that's sitting right here that I can control. I can add more properties for tinymce anytime that I want to then control that experience. So now whenever we go to call to action, and we go to add a new piece of content, and you see that there is a minimalistic set of formatting tools controlling the WYSIWYG. And let me not be remiss in showing you where the file lives that is controlling the options in the WYSIWYG. That is under the application WYSIWYG directory. The path to the minimal WYSIWYG BTL is what I pasted into the field variable to control the WYSIWYG tools. Okay, so and actually before we end up dropping our content on the page, what I can do, because on each content type you have the ability to set a workflow. Right now it's using system workflow. I'm going to actually flip it to use the call to action workflow right here, and not use the system workflow, right? And that's a new custom workflow that I just set up that's not in our starter, but I went ahead and set it up here. And basically this is the way that this custom workflow for this content type is going to work. If you want to add another workflow step, you just click here, call it draft, translate, review, whatever you wish, and then you can just drag these around anywhere you wish to set the order, and you can add as many sub actions as you want to appear to different user groups. Right. So you can permission, if I only want save to be accessible by contributor and anyone who can contribute content, those are the only ones that will actually be able to see the buttons that I am making. And then they will perform the actions, the sub actions over here on the right. So I set up some basics that the content contributor would have to send to a translator. Translator would translate, then send to a reviewer. The reviewer would publish. What I'm going to add for myself right now is a workaround with auto translation that will automatically, from the very first step, take a publish and translate action and move the content from the very first step all the way over to published. So I'm going to add that first in the published step here. So I'm going to actually translate and publish at the same time. And I'm going to say who can use. I want exclusive use of this button. So instead of giving it to any of the other user roles, I actually want to give it only to the admin user, which is me. And so that way you can make all the buttons completely exclusive. This show when shows when the user will actually see the button based upon the content state, whether they're clicking on a whole bunch of content in a listing, or whether the content is locked or unlocked, whether it's published or unpublished. You can determine when that button actually appears. You can also control if the user, as a part of the action, can assign content. If they're sending email or sending the task to someone for review, you can activate those buttons. And the default action is automatically notify, send an email, and the notification inside of dotCMS to that user. But here, if I want to publish and translate and publish, I want a save, which I can just start typing and it'll automatically include those actions. I'll take off the notify assignee. And here you can see there's tons of sub actions that I don't have time to talk about, but there's 4 eyes approval where you can set how many committee members need to approve something before it moves on. Copy content lit, large internal message, small internal message, social networking, push publishing, a couple different types of push publishing, requiring multiple approvers, sending emails, and each one of these actually has its own configuration inside, right? And I'm going to throw one for auto translation using Google Translate, right? So I'm going to save the content, and like I said, translate and publish. I'm going to publish the content, and I'm going to translate the content. And here is my translation. I'm just inserting here my Google Translate API key, developer key, so it'll handle the translation. I could even say ignore, please, fields that have the velocity variable name key. Don't translate those, and then place that in there. And then if I am going to allow this to be shown whenever the content is locked, I can automatically unlock the content so that no step in my workflow unlocks the content. I click save. And now I want to use that translate and publish button in multiple steps because I'm the only one who has access. So I want to give myself the ability to override any of those actions at any point in the step because it's only going to be visible to me. The nice thing about the workflow also is that you can say, who can actually see. So I can actually see anyone who can edit content, what buttons do they see for this call to action content type that it's applied to, and I get a horizontal view. And then if I say anyone who can publish the content, then they can actually get the rest of those actions. So you can get a nice horizontal and complete view for each user in the system on what they can actually do. So let me just make sure that that actually is applied to my content type. Yes, call to action. And then let's go add the call to action to the page. So let's go back to our index page here. Edit mode. And go down to the bottom. And I'm just going to click here and add new content. And I'm going to hit call to action, now using, which you can see, my brand new button that I put there, right? So I'm going to add already dreaming of winter for my winter vacation. Little experience here. And then for my button, I want to say book now. Go to a predetermined package page like destinations Colorado or something like that. I could put button 2 as well, and then that would also pick it up as a secondary button, but we're just going to hit it. I can click save. We can see that it's showing me my content type is call to action. My workflow is call to action. It's in step draft because I just click save. And then I can click translate and publish. And then that's going to actually, save that action. It'll publish the action. And now it's ready to be viewed upon the page. And here I've got my already dreaming of winter. And I can click on that and that'll lead me to my page. Now, whenever I actually clicked translate and publish on this content, it translates into however many languages used Google Translate that I have configured in the system. So that's already been done. So if I want to actually see the multiple language versions and I want to flip to them to see their translation or work for them and work through them in a workflow, I can just click edit and see here, click on the language tab and actually check the Spanish and see what it was translated into. So I click here my Spanish, and then I can see that it was translated. Now, is Google Translate perfect? Of course, no automatic translation is, but that's why I actually put it into a workflow where you can actually pass it to a review after it's auto translated and then verify or have someone who's an expert in that language then take it and make a modification. But at least it gets you 85% of the way there, and you can actually have a partial translation, a language version present for every language that you actually have in. Switch back to English now. And you could have different language reviewers work you through that workflow. And you could tie it to an external translation service. You don't have to use Google Translate. You could use Amazon. You could use something else as well. Okay. So now another thing that we have a lot of clients who are thinking about headless and they come back to us and say, you know what, we really want this is the ability to create new landing pages on the fly, and just boom, and also to be able to adjust the templates that are given to the marketers or content contributors. So the second I do this, remember I told you that the app is reading my page layout API and also my content API. So I can actually say that I want a 50-50 split here and add another area, which we call containers, right? And add the same container that's being used pretty much everywhere else except the top, which is specific for banners. And then I go back to my content. You can even, change other things here. And I click edit, and now instantly my app knows because it's reading the layout API. I can actually show you the layout API live for this page. I have it going on another tab, and now I can go ahead and add another piece of content over here on the right hand side in this 50-50 layout, right? And of course, anything that I drag and drop between my different fields should automatically resize, automatically adjust, and be responsive to the column and row that I'm in, because once again, that's part of what comes back in the layout API. Okay, so now that we've added that content, I'm going to actually add an image over here on the right and just drag that right in from the shortcut panel. Okay, so I'm going to now add an image by just dragging and dropping. So here I'm going to choose a file asset, and I've got an image over here, fresh powder. I'm going to bring that in, and I can choose to decide where I actually store, that image as it's uploaded. I can change the title and add a tag, maybe snow. And you see it automatically picks up from the previously committed tags to the content. And then I'll do some little description that'll automatically get picked up on my image and publish my content onto the page here. And now I've got that, image over here to the right that goes kind of with, and I can, once again, I can drag and drop that around my page, do whatever I want, and it should automatically be responsive to the layout of the page, right? Makes sense. Okay, so now I'm going to handle some of that content localization experience, right? So if I wanted to actually come up here and translate some of these activities and show them in Spanish. Right now, I don't believe it's showing in Spanish at all. I do have some of the others, but the activities don't show. It's completely avoided as a row, right? Because there is no content there. So I'm actually going to flip back to English and show two different ways that you can localize that content. So number one, I did add to the system workflow, I added a translate button here as well. So I can click translate. As I showed you, you can preview the Spanish that's auto-generated. Now I can go ahead and flip to my Spanish preview of the page, and now I see buceo, here instantly. Or I can go back to my English over here, go to activities, and I can perform the action in bulk. Remember, we were looking at the different views. So let me look at my English only, which once again, you can preview and sort by everything. So I can click here. I already did diving, so I don't need to translate that one in bulk. And then I can just click on my workflow actions and click translate, and it's going to translate all of my 9 activities all at the same time. All right. So it's giving me a countdown for the translation. Okay, so now all of them are translated. I can look only at my Spanish here and see all of it instantly translated as well. Then I go back to my site browser, open up my index page. I'm looking at it already in Spanish because it saw that I flipped to it in the content editor to Spanish, and so it kind of stays in the session until you change it. So now I'll flip back to English, right? So that way you can completely preview pages by language, by device type. So looking at a phone or a tablet landscape or portrait, I can go ahead and preview all the content, the new content I added on the same of the page, and get all those previews. So now I want to discuss personalization, which also works in our headless mode. Remember, everything we're seeing is completely headless. Well, the page we're seeing is created by my Next.js app. The only thing it's doing is reading APIs, right? So I'm going to show a perspective here on the page. These are different personas that you can build. This is just content, and I can create another persona just by clicking here and say mobile user. And I want the mobile user to see completely different content, or North American visitor or European visitor. I can regionalize in that way, and even put geolocation on content. We actually have geolocation files you can add as custom fields. So I can switch over to the vacation type visitor that I want to hit. And I can see that here I have, for my winter enthusiast, I don't have activities. I do have for my eco enthusiast, completely different banner, zip lining, diving, hiking, whitewater rafting. I have for my ocean enthusiast, completely different version of the page. And what we have built into the starter is if you actually hit the destination section and show that you're interested in a winter vacation, then you come back to your homepage, it'll automatically flip to this, because we have a rule in the rules engine that says whenever the user shows interest, and it could react to language set in the browser, it could react to your region, and automatically load the page that way before the user does anything. But there's a whole rules engine I don't have time to go into, but that helps to automatically detect who the user is, detect what behavior they're showing, and then you can pull personalized on the content and create many different versions of the page. Right now I'm going to show, if I go to my winter enthusiast, there are no activities, so then I can click edit only for the winter enthusiast version of the page. I can click here and then add content. I want to add activities, right? And then I'll pick the snowmobiling. We see that the language version here as well. I could just show the English, right? And click search and show just that. So I'll add some snowmobiling and content and snowboarding. And it doesn't matter which language version I actually pick. It will automatically show only the one that, and add skiing and maybe cross-country skiing. And now I have created a custom set of activities that I want the user who I identify as someone who's interested in a winter vacation to be able to see on the page. I can also do, if I see that the boots are out of alignment here, so I want to drag and drop my boot. Let's just say if I dragged it over here, once again, it should be responsive even in headless, and I drag it over here to the top of this guy, and now I've got my boots in line. got my video there, I've got my images, and now the page is looking the way I want it, right? Okay. All right. We did a language preview, device type preview, persona preview. I personalized a little bit for the winter enthusiast. I'm going to switch back to the default visitor. And then we're going to cover headless navigation. So if you have side menus or you have a main menu like this, and let's just say the store, we don't want it here on the far right hand side. I want to adjust it and move it before members only. So I can be in my edit mode, click on that little arrow there, drag my store, and you can even drag sub items as well, because this is navigation as a service. We build everything headlessly. Right now my store moves over here, and it doesn't matter what page I go to. I'm going to go to the travel blog section in just a second, and it's the menu remains for all of my pages, right? Navigation as a service, headless first. I want to now show you the block editor. Let me go to our travel blog section. This is really cool. I've shown WYSIWYG so far, but we actually have our block editor built into dotCMS to allow basically creating a very large JSON object using multiple blocks. So I'll go to edit mode here in my blog editor. And let's just say I want to add something about scuba diving, because that's my hobby. And let's just click in here, and we're opening up our block editor, which you can see there are several different blocks here, and I can drag and drop those around the page, and create basically multiple blocks that all form a nice JSON object that then everything can be read from and reacted to using your app, and control the presentation of how that each component should look. I can step right in here and edit something. So I'm just going to move down here, and I'm going to modify a heading and just add some new text. So since we were talking about scuba diving and adding that to French Polynesia, so I'll just step down here to the travel guide, and you can see I've got some tools there for modifying. I'm just going to add scuba diving in French Polynesia. So make that change, and then I can add a new item by pressing a /, or I can just press enter and add something new. This is the rules for scuba diving in French Polynesia. And then once again, you can see that there are the different styling tools to go ahead and help you add elements. And so I'm actually going to add images in a couple of different ways here. First, I'm going to actually just drag and drop an image of a scuba diver right here. So I'm just going to go from my desktop. You can't see my desktop, but I'm just dragging it right in. So that's kind of nice to be able to just do that. And, I can go to the properties. I can say, add the alt text. And add a caption underneath, do whatever I want. It shows me my path to my digital asset. I can left, right, and center, create a link if I need to, and just simply add it that way. However, you can also, let's just say I wanted to add another image down here. I could just go to Google and just look for an image and right click and copy that image. I can actually even copy the image address and keep the image stored external to dotCMS. But I'm going to now paste that, and then it's taking the copied image and placing it right inside of dotCMS. Once again, I can change the alt tag and everything like that. So there's lots of things that you can do here inside the editor. If I now highlight this link and I click link, then I can even, change my link, change how it opens, if it opens up in a new window or not, remove the link, copy the link, do whatever I want, in addition to all the styling aspects as well, right? So then I click update, and it updates the page. I can even come down here to the bottom, and let's just say I want to add to my block editor another content type, right? So I want to add products down to the bottom or something like that. So I can click edit and click in here again and go down to the bottom. We were talking about scuba diving, so maybe there's some recommended products, and I see maybe one is missing here. So I want to add, instead of a heading or a paragraph or just some text, you could even do code blocks, and you can actually, whitelist any of these and hide them. It's totally up to you as far as the configuration. But I can also add contentlets. Right. So now I'm getting a complete list of all the contentlets or components, which are handled by my Next.js app. So I can come down here to a product and say I want to search for, a scuba diving, gear, or something here. I'll just do this O'Neill vest, and then just add that. And then of course my styling of how that product should look within the block editor is coming from Next.js. So what's really neat about this is you have a single source of truth over your individual content items that are used within the block editor. So if I make a change to this O'Neill product in the product content itself, external from this page, it's going to update all of the content here on recommended products or any other block editor that happens to be using that product. So if I move back to products, I look at O'Neill, any change that I make here is then going to be reflected in what is shown inside that block editor or any other block editor that's actually using this product information. So single source of truth for all of your reused content inside of block editors and articles within dotCMS. All changes immediately get updated. So that's really an important thing to remember, that dotCMS is content centric, and that reusability within the block editor is a nice new feature that we've added to our headless features. Okay, well, so that's really the content management experience in edit mode anywhere in dotCMS from a headless perspective. The great thing is that in dotCMS, content publishers and managers do not have to give up any of their content management experience, even while developers are creating that modern external decoupled application. And they can create new pages, change layouts, drag and drop navigation items and content, drag images into articles straight from their desktop that they're writing, all without asking a developer for help. Creating new marketing pages, establishing their own layouts from templates that are just initially designed by webmasters. This is the power and flexibility and hybrid capability of dotCMS when developing sites. On the same server, some sites can have pages built in dotCMS, some can have sites that are external SPAs controlling, or having multiple sites that do both. Building and designing new landing pages, all of that does not need special help when building an SPA in a headless environment in dotCMS. So we're trying to offer the best of both worlds there. And really, that's all I had to cover. Thank you so much.